Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, Peter, during the past few days, we've had occasion to speak several times about the strange nature of British foreign policy. We spoke about the phone call that was initiated by Dominic Raab to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, during which Raab, should we say, got an earful from Lavrov saying, yeah, UK-Russia relations are as bad as they could be, and it's all the UK's fault. So you got that. Then the other day we spoke about UK Defense Secretary Ben Wallace's visit to Belgrade, during which he ranted and raved about Russia's malign influence and how he's trying to wean the Serbs away from the malevolent Russians. And then yesterday, we had this extraordinary confrontation in Crimea between a UK destroyer and Russian coastal defenses. The story seems to be that this UK destroyer sailed into Russian territorial waters near Crimea. The ships, the Coast Guard ships, warned the UK destroyer and fired shots in warning. And Russian bombers bombed some distance away from the
which the UK denies.
Well, that's what I was coming to. Now, the UK denies this, but it's very peculiar what the UK is actually saying, because what are they denying? They say, well, these warning shots were not targeted at the destroyer. Well, warning shots are warning shots. They're not targeted. What a warning shot does is that if you continue doing what you're doing.
What did they do? Miss?
Yeah.
Did they miss?
That's it. So that was the point. But there is something very strange about the UK stance, because, I mean, most of the time when these events happen, countries deny that they had actually waded into somebody else's territorial waters. They say, no, it didn't happen. We were in international waters, or we were in international airspace, and those nasty Russians, Iranians, or whatever, were operating outside of their territorial waters. But in this case, the British aren't really saying that. Although what the British are saying is very peculiar. They're saying, in the first place, that, well, we don't recognize Russia's sovereignty over these territorial waters. They are Ukrainian waters. And at the same time, they're saying, well, we were in international waters. And then the British position, as articulated by Boris Johnson, says, well, we are acting entirely in accordance with international law, because international law permits entering into territorial waters if that is the shortest way to get from A to B. Now, this is very interesting, because if you look at the International Convention on the Law of the Sea, where it talks about the meaning of innocent passage.
Innocent passage.
Yeah, meaning of innocent passage, because that's what the British are claiming, that this was innocent passage. We were going through, all we're doing, we're trying to get from A to B, no harm done, and the terrible Russians started shooting, which again, they're denying, which again is so odd that they're also denying that the Russians did this. But it is saying that passage is innocent, so long as it is not prejudicial to the peace, good order, or security of the coastal state. Then it says, passage of a foreign ship shall be considered to be prejudicial to the peace, good order, or security of the coastal state if, in the territorial sea, it engages in any of the following activities. A, any threat or use of force against the sovereignty, territorial integrity, or political independence of the coastal state, or in any other manner in violation of the principles of international law and the Charter of the United Nations. And B, any exercise or practice with weapons of any kind. Now, this is a warship. It's not, a fishing vessel.
Oh, I thought it was a sailboat. I thought it was a sailboat.
And from the reports, the BBC reports, that they were clearly armed, locked and loaded, waiting for a confrontation. So this was no innocent passage and in accordance with international law. So the British are putting out one nonsensical story after another. And when that happens, you know who's in the right and who's in the wrong. Okay, Peter, what do you think?
Obviously, it was a provocation, and there's sea breeze exercises are going to happen next week. So this is going to be on a much larger scale. They were, quote unquote, testing the waters, I guess, and they got a very rude awakening. Okay, the Russians take this very seriously. What do you think? What do the British think? I mean, you keep naming these secretaries. I don't know who they are. Who are these people?
No.
Nobody's.
No, I had never.
Nobody. Who cares about these people?
Pop up. We kind of hear of them for the first time.
I feel like I got to write this down or something. Who's it this time? Okay. No, I mean, obviously this is a provocation. You're absolutely right. I'm glad you brought up international law. Sure, they do not recognize the sovereignty of Crimea to be part of Russia. The problem is Russia does. Okay,
that's the big problem.
So that's what you get. Yeah. That's what you get.
Right.
And so they knew the Russians would react that way. So I mean, I don't know what's going on here, George. Just today, in the current news cycle, Merkel and Macron are making noise that they want to sit down in Europe somewhere and talk to Putin. So what are these no-name secretaries doing in the UK? Right. I mean, are they trying to show that they're the purest of the pure to the Biden administration, to Blinken and Sullivan? Or, and after 1 week after unity, okay? Right. And then we have this, what's going on here? Now, obviously it was a provocation. They wanted to see how the Russians react because they're going to try it again next week. And so the Russians have made it very clear. Sure, we'll beef up our defenses, okay? Right. We take this seriously. You should grow up and take it seriously too. Because it's the UK that is spoiling for a fight, and it's obvious. What was that ship doing there in the first place?
Well, that's it.
And how many thousands of kilometers is it away from the UK? What are you defending?
Well, that's exactly it. And if you, this is what Johnson is saying. I mean, who Johnson is saying, oh, no, we're in international waters, but no, we're in Ukrainian waters. Why are we in Ukrainian waters? Because we're espousing our values. We're promoting values. This is what Johnson is saying. So that means the
warship project values,
and
George.
then you cannot then claim that you are, innocently passing through, going from A to B. It's a nonsensical. It's a completely nonsensical position, and then it's compounded by the fact that no, you didn't really shoot at us. No. We decided to move by ourselves. We didn't turn tail and run. I mean, it's like children.
Well, they did.
I didn't run away from the fight. No. I just have to go and to see teacher. So what kind of a stupid argument is that? I mean,
let's say what it is. It was a slap down.
Right.
And a big one, and an obvious one. There was nothing innocent about this. And I am really sick and tired of this Orwellian language. What is a warship's values, George? Can you explain to me what a warship's values are?
Yes, that's right. Well, we don't recognize it, so we're promoting our values. And as you say, a warship. I mean, it's basically got guns. I mean, in this case, it's an it's an air defense warship, so it's presumably shooting down aircraft or missiles. But I don't know what values it's promoting thereby. I mean, again, this is Johnson NATO speak of sort of, well, apparently when you're killing and bombing, you're promoting values.
It's a derivative of all of this that no one's going to mention except for here at the Gaggle and maybe some of the smart guys over at Moon of Alabama. This is only going to embolden Zelensky, okay? And that's not what we need to have happen right now. We don't know what was said behind closed doors at the summit. My gut feeling is that Ukraine is a piece, for all intents and purposes, of being temporarily put off the board, or at least as a piece on the board, it's not going to be moving, okay? This is just my opinion, okay? Because there wasn't a readout that really identified it. Actually, indirectly, the summit did recognize the Minsk process, okay? for lack of another policy, because they didn't propose one. Oh, is it warships off of Crimea? Is that your alternative? What kind of message is this alliance sending? Okay.
Well, this is
it's very, very unclear. It's unstable. It's destabilizing. I thought the whole damn summit was about predictability, okay, and stability. And then they pull off this stunt?
Right. But it is interesting because this is the day on which the European Union, I mean, particularly Macron and Merkel, who want improved relations with Russia. But remember, we also had this paper that was published last week by Josep Borrell, which talked about, it was a very belligerent, very hostile toward Russia, something like push back, constrain, and engage. So it was a pushback, constrain, and engage. That should be the policy toward Russia. That's Borrell. But that isn't the position of Merkel and Macron, the two leading powers. But again, as always happens, the sort of the sensible, cooler voices within Europe get drowned out by this NATO machine, and this demented character Borrell was the worst, probably the worst foreign minister, if one could call foreign minister of the EU that has ever had. I mean, I thought Catherine Ashton was bad enough.
I thought
Mogherini was bad enough, but
yeah, she was crying all the time. Why are you crying?
Right.
You know, let me tell you, this is what Putin and Lavrov are doing. This is what they're doing. They're looking at the UK, France, Germany, what's going over there in Crimea, and then they do a Reagan. There you go again.
Right.
Okay, and they say Russia's trying to divide members of NATO and of the European Union.
Right.
Russia's doing it. Who do you listen to?
Right. But
these no names in the UK, are they the real force here?
Right. That's it. And that's it. That's why if you're listening to London today, London is just coming up with one nonsensical story after another, and they're getting away with it. Well, in part because there's no real opposition. I mean, there used to be something called the Labour Party. There used to be an opposition, which in such a situation, they would actually hold the government's feet to the fire and say, what the hell are you doing? Getting yourself into this stupid confrontation with Russia, getting the British people involved in a war that the British people do not want. That's what you would have had if you'd had a proper opposition. That hasn't happened. Or if you had proper media that would actually say, why are you coming up with one nonsensical story after another, none of which actually makes any sense? And why are you completely misinterpreting what international law says about navigation?
Well, I'm waiting for the headline. Why did the Russians move Crimea towards our warships?
Right. Yeah.
This is, if there's any kind of spirit, I don't want to use the word détente because that looks like literally it is a relaxation of tensions. The West doesn't want a relaxation. The conclusion that you and I have tentatively come to in the afterglow of the summit is that don't let it get any hotter. Okay, right. Well, this is being dispelled right now. Okay, right. Cooler heads are not prevailing, and I just, for the life of me, can't understand why the UK is in the Black Sea kicking up dust like this. Okay, I mean, for the life of me, I can't figure it out. And then they're sending ships over to the Taiwan Straits, and a French one too. I guess the only one that can make it back.
That's another aspect of it, because there is such a thing called the Montreal Convention, and the Montreal Convention says, okay, well, there are these Black Sea powers, they're fine, and non-Black Sea powers, they can come in, spend a little bit of time in the Black Sea, then they have to leave. They can't engage in anything belligerent. But this is, Britain and the United States, who are not Black Sea powers, they continually, bring their ships in and are engaged in all sorts of belligerent activities. I never understood. I mean, how is all this still?
We did a video on this. We did a video on this. That U.S. Coast Guard ships go to the Black Sea.
Right.
The Coast Guard, American Coast Guard.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, don't they have enough work to do on the American coast,
right,
and to go all the way around the world to make create provocations for no reason whatsoever?
Right.
No, what NATO wants to do, I mean, this is their plan with Zelensky or whoever's in Kiev, they don't care, as long as they do their bidding, is that they want to replicate Sevastopol, a base in the Black Sea that will be a port of call for NATO, okay? But the convention you just mentioned, this will be sticky because they're a juxtaposition. They are not Black Sea powers.
They're not Black Sea powers, which means they can only stay a limited amount of time. And they're not really supposed to be engaged in any military activities. I mean,
Zero,
exactly. So always bizarre. But now the British have signed a contract, which is kind of what all this was about. They signed a contract to help build up the Ukraine Navy. With a view to what? I mean, you know, let Ukraine fight a naval war with Russia in the Black Sea? No. So again, you're just sort of whipping up Ukraine at a time when Ukraine has already been told, you know, forget about NATO membership for the time being. But one thing that is a possibility, like, I mean, we can only speculate, but it may be that Biden, who's been around for forever, has some kind of a cautious attitude towards the world. I mean, you know, he was around during the Cold War. He remembers arms control agreements. And it may be that he got cold feet around about April as to where everything was going with Ukraine, you know, when he made that stupid killer comment. And he's decided, okay, let's back away from this. And maybe this is what's going on now. For us, the US administration has certainly backed away from the position it was taking a few months earlier. But who knows how long Biden is going to be there? Harris comes in. Harris, who knows nothing about foreign policy. I can well see her like, yeah, well, yeah, let's have Ukraine in. That's a good idea. I mean, why not bring in Ukraine? We have to be, it's part of diversity. It's all about inclusiveness. So let's include Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a very interesting point, and I think that it has some currency here. And again, one of the reasons why I am dead set against these types of military alliances, because basically you may have NATO basically doing a wag the dog situation where they're actually creating a situation where, you know, you're gonna have to come in, you gotta, you know, get our back here. The Russians are being provocative, even though the provocation started with the UK. That's very interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised. Okay.
Right.
What they're trying to do is shake the tree and see if anything falls. Okay, which is outrageously dangerous to do. Right. Everyone has to understand this. You know, like Texas is part of the United States. The Russians deem Crimea, and the people of Crimea deem it as part of Russia. There's no if or buts or caveats, right, asterisk points, right, none, right, zero. I mean, there's no daylight.
That's right. So when Johnson says, well, we don't recognize it. Well, you know, it doesn't matter whether you recognize it.
I recognize his stupidity, okay?
Right, exactly. I mean, after all, and the Russians will say, well, we don't recognize your recognition of Kosovo. So what? You know, I mean, it's like, you make all these rules part of your rules-based order, and you know, they have no validity. You know, half the world doesn't recognize Kosovo independence. So, you may think that, you know, what you say goes, it doesn't. So the fact that they say, oh, well, we don't recognize Russian sovereignty, it matters not one bit. Russia recognizes Russia's sovereignty, and it will fight for Crimea. It is going to shoot at Russian ships. No question. It will shoot.
Well,
it will destroy British ships.
Let's make it clear for our simpleton Boris Johnson. So that would be like the Russians saying, well, we don't recognize Gibraltar as part of the UK. It's not yours, okay? Yeah. Okay, and they will say, no, we'll fight for it. Now you're beginning to understand, okay? Do you understand the equivalence here?
Right.
Okay, yeah. And you know, I've made it very clear here over and over again, there is a way out of this, okay? During the entire course of the Cold War, the United States and its Western allies never officially recognized the Baltic republics as part of the Soviet Union. Okay, it was living as if. Yep. The Soviets lived as if it was recognized, and the West recognized as if it wasn't. They still engaged each other. So these people like Boris Johnson and these hotheads in NATO, because they're afraid of losing their relevance, they wake up in the middle of the night in a sweat, George, in a sweat. You know, are we relevant? Are we relevant? Okay. Right. After all of the unity talk, okay, they're still, I mean, and this is why they'll pull a stunt like this. because they need the cohesion. They're terrified that at the end of the day, people are going to say, no, we're not going to do that. Okay. Right. So it's really a litmus test for them. And as usual, they're failing.
They're failing. So yeah, but it is strange because Britain is kind of behaving rather like Erdogan. You know, he gets himself into a shooting war with Russia, shoots down a Russian plane, and then say, hey, NATO, Article 5, you know, Article 5, does that apply? Oh, well, let's do that sometime.
I'll tell you, George, the Spaniards, the Italians, I think the French, the Belgians, the Dutch, if a British ship in a stunt like this is damaged or rammed, no, they're gonna, no way. Okay, again, that is NATO's nightmare.
That's right. You're on your own. Now, Johnson has been putting it about. I mean, there've been stories about this, that he too wants a summit with Putin. And so it's possible that in his childish thinking that this is the way to get Putin's attention, and now he's going to get his summit, just like, you know, Biden made that killer comment that got Putin's attention, and Biden got his summit. So now maybe he thinks that now he'll get his summit. But as we've discussed in a previous podcast, what goes to the United States doesn't go for Great Britain. Russia does not look at Great Britain the way it looks at the United States. It respects US power. It may not like the United States, but it respects the United States power. It doesn't respect the Great Britain. It really doesn't. He thinks that it's a ridiculous, pretentious
you know what's going to happen
of the United States.
You know what's going to happen, George, is that, of course, there's not going to be a summit. No way. If Merkel wants one, I think Putin would probably say.
I think so too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it would be better if it was Merkel and Macron, because talk to the adults. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, never in my life would have I thought of saying Macron is an adult, just as an aside. Okay. But I mean, Boris Johnson, your best chance is a sideline in between hors d'oeuvres at the G20. Okay, that's your best chance. Okay, and you know, because Putin doesn't act like Trump, but you could expect someone picking you up.
But I guess I don't even see what's the value.
What's the point?
Boris Johnson, what does Russia get out of it? I mean, you know, the British have not been helpful on any issue at all. So, I mean, the Germans and the French have been helpful. They were helpful on Ukraine. I mean, they were cooler voices urging Zelensky to start negotiating and urging Zelensky to get back to the Minsk Accords. So, I mean, there's a reason to meet with Merkel and Macron. What's the point of Johnson? I mean, unless Johnson is prepared to abandon all his nonsense about the Skripals, and Russia's interference in the Brexit referendum, but there's just so much in the British DNA. I don't see Johnson abandoning any of those. So what's the point of meeting him?
They're not even Facebook friends, okay? So why should they meet?
Yeah, that's right. But it's also, it leads me to think that Johnson was always a lightweight. I mean, he should never have been prime minister. He was always completely in over his head, a buffoonish political figure. But because of the fluke of Brexit, he wound up in the #1 position. We've always known that he wasn't up to the job.
Yeah, but the former Prime Minister Theresa May, I mean, one of the most inept individuals that have ever walked the earth. Okay, I mean, it's like Joe Biden getting the nomination in the Democratic Party. I mean, the most unlikely way to get the job. I mean, really unlikely. Okay, I mean, purely accidental. Kamala Harris, purely accidental. Boris Johnson. I mean, this is again, you know, what we said yesterday. The mediocrity of this political class is astounding. Okay. I mean, at least Erdogan, I mean, he is a bully, but he's a calculated one.
He's a calculated.
He knows what he's doing. It's wrong, but he knows what he's doing.
And he has survived. I mean, now, if you survive for that long, you have to know something about your countrymen. You have to be able to, you're tapping into something within your countrymen. It might be not be very nice, but you're doing something right to survive for that long. So Erdogan is extremely cunning, and he antagonizes everybody, but it has worked for him. But, you know, I mean, in the case of Theresa May, I mean, Theresa May became prime minister in the aftermath of the Brexit debacle, just because the Tories didn't want Boris Johnson. I mean, it was like, you know, anyone but Boris Johnson. And then, of course, May herself was such a disaster, and so they really couldn't stop Boris Johnson anymore. Johnson survives because Labour is nowhere. I mean, if there was a proper opposition, Johnson would be for the birds. But he survives because like we're talking about, we don't know who these ministers are. Who the hell is the Labour leader, Keir Starmer? Who he? I mean, it's just
he's just he's just a deep state functionary. That's the best they could do. Really, I mean, again, kind of reflecting upon, the club, the G7. I mean, if that's the fate of the world is in the hands of these people, God help us all, help us all. Yeah. Just a bunch of mediocre, low-octane thinkers that are apparatchiki and are just placeholders for power. It's just amazing. Yeah. And they're given so much power, and they think that they have moral fortitude.
The values, we were there with, espousing our values, and we didn't turn tail and run. No. They didn't really shoot at us. Well, they were engaged in a military exercise. No. We didn't really turn tail and run.
Well, maybe we can invoke Stalin, but a certain, a different rendition. Serious question, George. How many divisions does values have?
That's right. Or you can also say, how many divisions do the British have? I mean, are the British really seriously thinking that they're going to fight in the Crimea? I mean,
it's kind of like the Monty Python when the knights are fighting. He slices off it. Come back, you coward!
That's right. Come back, you coward.
Monty Python, some of the greatest political philosophy of our modern time, okay? I encourage everyone to go back and take a look at it, okay? You will not be sorry, or you will learn a lot, more than you'll read from the Washington Post or the New York Times. Okay?
No, I think that's right. And that gag is a priceless gag. I mean, we won't go through in the life of Brian about the Romans, other than irrigation, clean water, agriculture, government, the rule of law. What have the Romans done for us?
You see, everyone, you can see the cultural heritage to Georgian.
That's it.
Never underestimate Monty Python.
That's right.
Easy. Monty Python doesn't have Saturday Night Live doesn't have anything on Monty Python.
Come on. Okay. Absolutely not.
Smart man's humor.
That's it. That's right.
All right, that's it there. Everyone, we're on locals. We're very serious about it. We really enjoy it. We've started our series of doing one-on-ones with our members on Zoom, of course. George and I had a very, very pleasant experience with Jared and his lovely wife in Texas. And we look forward to speaking to them again. And so just so everyone knows, we do it, okay?
We do it, exactly. I think it's a lot of fun for us. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun for you. It's we learn a lot. I hope you will learn a lot. It's great. So do please take this opportunity to talk to us. We'd love to.
And I'd like to take the opportunity. We do have a tip jar.
A tip jar, very important.
Okay. And Buddy's very, very possessive of it, but George has his eye on it.
Yes, exactly. It's 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 too small for the two of us. Is it? Oh yeah, we've got to wait for him. Oh, there he is.
Your arch rival.
Yeah. It's very hard to push that aside. I mean, he's just too adorable.
All right, everyone.
We're also on Rumble. Look us up on Rumble. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. All right, buddy.